Landover was a genuine magic kingdom with fairy folk and wizardry, just as the advertisement had promised. But after he purchased it, Ben Holiday learned that there were a few details the ad had failed to mention. The kingdom was in ruin, the barons refused to recognize a king, and the peasantry without hope. A dragon was laying waste to the countryside, while an evil witch plotted to destroy everything. Ben's only followers were the incompetent court magician, Abernathy the talking dog, who served as court scribe, and the lovely Willow. But she had a habit of putting down roots in the moonlight and turning into a tree. The paladin, legendary champion of the kings of Landover, seemed to be only a myth and an empty suit of armor. To put the final touch on the whole affair, Ben soon learned that the Iron Mark, terrible lord of the demons, had challenged all prospective kings of Landover to a duel to the death, a duel which no human could hope to win. The task of proving his right to be king seemed hopeless, but Ben Holiday was stubborn.
Hey guys, Frodo Reviews here again, bringing you another book that you may be able to read over second breakfast. Though probably not, because I tend to read trash. Anyways, a couple things you'll note. First is that my video quality is much better. This is actually because I went out and bought a cheap little webcam. It's nothing great, but as you can tell, it's clearly much better. It's helped me with the lighting situation a bit, which is still not stellar, but I realize that now. One of the things you have to forgive is you also notice that my hair is kind of in a mess right now. Yeah, we're officially at that stage of growth where it's just kind of doing whatever it wants. So I tried to pat it down a bit with water before I started this. But, yeah, as you can tell, that didn't go over too well. So, next time you see me, I might have a much smaller do. Just gonna put that out there. Okay. You might also notice I'm sweating a bit more. That's because with all this lighting, it's actually pretty warm in here. So, anyways, but you're not actually here to hear me talk about myself, my problems, lighting, or my new webcam, as much as it might interest you. No, we're here for a book review. You're here to talk about the Magic Kingdom that's been sold. Yeah. So, this is a book called Magic Kingdom for Sale. Sold. Yes, the sold is actually part of the title. When I looked it up, the sold was included everywhere. It's not like this neat little stamp. That's the title. Magic Kingdom for Sale. Sold. So yeah, whatever. It is a part of the Magic Kingdom of Landover series, but it is a long series. As you can see, I have a couple of the books. I picked them up for cheap at a thrift store. It looked like an interesting series when I saw it, so I picked it up. I'm still debating if that was a mistake or not. Let's just start. Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold is a Terry Brooks novel. Now, for those of you who never read his work, he's also the writer of the Shannara Chronicles. I think that's how you're supposed to say it, Shannara, which is a big epic fantasy kind of thing, as far as I've heard it. I haven't read it, though I do have some of the books on my shelf. I'll get to them. This particular book was published in 1984. It has a 3.9 on Goodreads, a 4.6 on Amazon, and a 4.1 on Barnes & Noble. And, well, so the plot. I've already read you the synopsis, but a more general term of it is, the plot is mostly about a middle-aged lawyer named Ben Holiday noticing a strange ad in a Christmas catalog about someone selling a Magic Kingdom for about $1 million. I guess a lot back then, not so much nowadays. Whatever. He's initially brushing it off as a joke. He decides that he wants to take a risk to break out of the depression of his modern-day life. He recently lost his wife, and he's finding it hard to just get through the day nowadays. So, you know what? He's going to take the chance. Even if it's wrong, it's an adventure. That's how he figures it. Except that he finds out not only was the ad real, but the flyer left out some of the problems. So Ben Holiday is now High King, and must unite the land and start working on the many problems of the Magic Kingdom of Landover, with only the help of a court magician that is inept at magic, a court scribe who is a dog, a talking dog, and two monkey-like creatures with gigantic ears and sharp teeth that serve as his cooks and general servants. like bodyguards. So you're thinking to yourself, well, that doesn't sound too bad. That sounds like a rather interesting comedy. Well, that's where you're wrong, Buckaroo. Now, you might expect me to go through this review a lot like I've done my other reviews. That being to divide it into sections to give you and recap it so I can give you guys context to the criticisms and the compliments I have for the book. And I thought about that, but then I realized that plot synopsis I just gave you, it's pretty much all the context you need. Really, there's nothing else. It's I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll provide some extra as I bring up specific points I want to talk about, but I really have given you all the necessary context. So this week's review is going to be a little different. I'm going to see how much I like it. I might start doing this for other reviews as well, just so you know, shake up the style a little. As you can see, I'm constantly trying to upgrade, put some money into this. I do want to do this. This is a lot of fun for me. So, without further ado, let's go on with the review. Now, despite the new style, we are going to start what we always do, with the cover. Now, as you can see with the cover, it's simple, admittedly. You have Ben Holiday here at his coronation. He holds affront his amulet that was given to him upon purchase of the kingdom, while Questeth the Use, his incompetent court magician, looks to be putting some necklace on him. And Abernathy, his court scribe, which is a dog, it stands behind him to record the whole thing. Now, there's some issues here. The Abernathy kind of throws this whole perspective off because, as far as you know, he's just a normal dog. So it might look like everyone is tiny, especially with these candle holders. The candle holders also are kind of situated in a strange pattern along. Well, this one is right at the corner. This one is way up, closer to this. Whereas these two appear to be at the corners as they were meant to be. This one may even be close to the first step. Behind them, now if you haven't read the coronation scene, you wouldn't know what these are. But these are supposed to be flags. Now, a problem with this is that in the coronation scene in the book, the flags are meant to represent the factions that he represents as High King. So each of them are different colors and have different insignias on them. Unfortunately, the artist DK, you can see a little signature down here, didn't really make that distinction between them. They're all just the same flag, almost copy and pasted. And, well, you also got Ben Holiday just kind of staring at you as you pick up this book. Kind of like he's looking at you and saying, what'd you expect? You expected a grand tale? No, none of that here. So, it looks like he's trying to warn you off a little. But, ultimately, with this front cover, there was one thing I want to talk about. And that is this part right here. Now, this is something I've noticed with bigger name authors and stuff. It's that when they get big enough, when they start writing books, it's more about their name on the cover than it is about the book. See, Terry Brooks is bigger than the actual name of the novel. And you even have this little right here, which is very deceptive at first. You might look at this at a passing glance and think it's saying this book was a New York Times bestseller. When in reality, no, this is hyping up Terry Brooks. You're here to read this because Terry Brooks wrote it, not because you like the interest of the story. And to a degree, I can understand that a bit. But ultimately, I think the story should stand up more than the author. Like I said, you notice it with some bigger name authors. For example, I have some James Patterson's here, his Alex Cross series. Now, as you can see, some of his earlier books, Four Blind Mice and Roses Are Red, the title of the book is far more important than the fact that Patterson wrote them. However, you take one of his newer Alex Cross books and look at that. James Patterson is the selling point of this novel. It's not about Alex Cross anymore. Even turning it around, Alex Cross is a little more prominent because it's just labeled Alex Cross Thriller. James Patterson's still pretty big on here, though. Now, the front cover isn't so bad with this one, but with this one, it's much worse. So, I just wanted to comment on that. Now, I've talked about what I can on the front, so let's talk about the back. There's nothing to talk about. It's just the synopsis, and I've already given you that. It's not even really does anything interesting like with Firestarter, where the back in color scheme contrasts the front. Even this little blurb down here isn't a review to hype up the book. It's just, pretty sure it's from the publisher just saying, hey, this is Terry Brooks' first non-Shannara novel. Read it. So, here, in his first non-Shannara novel, Terry Brooks has written a gripping story of mystery, magic, and adventure, sure to delight fantasy readers everywhere. No. Just no. Alright, so, from there, we'll move on. Now, before I start talking about my complaints about this book, I want to talk about some of the good things I have to say about it. One of the good things I have to say is that the world is really realistic. I mean, in a sense that it's well fleshed out. You read this world, and it's clear Brooks put a lot of thought into how the world of Landover works. You get how the ecosystem works, you get how the factions interact with each other, you get how the High King is seen and what his general duties are meant to be. You get how the other factions see each other. It's written well. If this was in a different novel that was more interesting, it would be, I wouldn't necessarily go heights of Lord of the Rings, but it'd be up there with some of the better ones. Another good point is that it has mostly likable characters. I didn't really hate any of the characters, and that does tend to run a problem. There is one character I didn't like a lot, but I'll get into that later with a complaint. But for the most part, every character is likable. I mean, it's just, it's nice to read about characters that you can like. I guess I keep repeating myself on that, so I'll just move on. Another good thing is that this book flows really well. Terry Brooks clearly knows how to write. He's able to keep the story flowing in such a way that it doesn't feel like it breaks, even though this book is has quite a bit of exposition and descriptions. You don't really ever get bored reading it, I guess, in a sense. Like, your mind doesn't wander like you do with some of those ones that are just really badly paced or really badly flowing. But yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up, say it flows pretty well. It's kind of like Dorothy Must Die. I'm not saying the book is good because of it, but it's not like I have trouble reading it either. So, with the good points said, it's time to move on to the bad points. Now, let's start simply. This book was written for the wrong genre. And that is subjective. I'm going to acknowledge that. It's very subjective. But the setup and the description of this book, to me, very heavily hinted that this was going to be a comedic novel. It was going to... I mean, seriously, think about it. The cast is a dog that can talk and is the court scribe. It's a wizard that tries to do magic but has wacky and unpredictable results because he's that inept at it. The main character is an isekai lawyer. You have the girlfriend turns into a tree at random, and these two kobold monkey things are his bodyguards and his servants. I mean, there's even a race in here called the Gahome Gnomes, because they're so disliked that the first thing anyone says to them is "Go home, gnomes," and that just became their species name. I mean, this comes off like it should be a comedy, right? But no, Terry Brooks plays this completely straight. This is a dramatic novel about a man buying a magical kingdom for $1 million and then trying to bring it back to its former glory. This isn't a comedic take. There's really no comedic situations. The issues they get in are treated with real severity and danger, and it's just it creates this strange dissonance. What I'm reading is fantastical and wacky, but Terry Brooks is talking about it like it should be normal. This is something that we should look at and say, oh no, that's dangerous. I hope the trolls don't eat the talking dog. But yeah, the book, I guess, is best summed up as 40% exposition, 40% description, and about 20% political talking. And unfortunately, that does make it a bit boring in comparison. The first time you read it, you'll get through it fine. The novelty carrying you through as you wonder where this is going to go. But the second time, or even the sequels, it's going to come off very boring to you. Confession, I tried to read the sequel, see if it got better. I got to about page 60, put it down somewhere, and forgot it existed for about 2 weeks. I stumbled across it again, and I'm like, oh yeah, I was reading this, wasn't I? So, yeah, it doesn't, because of its dramatic storytelling, it's just not, it doesn't do enough to catch your attention, unfortunately. And I guess that's what I have to say about it. So, we'll go on to the next point. And the next point is the one character I didn't like. Willow. Ben Holiday's girlfriend. She is a half-fae woman by the name of Willow. I did not like her. From the first time we meet her, she decides that she belongs to Ben Holiday because of some long-distant prophecy that told her that the first person to see her naked would become her husband and true love. And I guess there might be a good idea behind there between fate and making your own decision, but unfortunately, this doesn't serve to do anything to Willow except rob her of agency while also making her come off as manipulative later. You see, she only likes Ben Holiday and thinks she needs to marry him because the prophecy told her so. There's nothing about Ben Holiday that draws her to him in terms of his personality or who he is as a person. It's just like she has no agency in this romance because she's just doing this because that's what was told was going to happen. Now, Ben Holiday doesn't want to do this. He has more sense. He doesn't want to just marry a woman because he saw her naked once on complete accident. He went to go basically wash his face in a river and found her bathing. So, in a sense, Holiday comes off way more sympathetic in this romance, but Willow is just... And Willow loses her sympathy later on. You see, after Ben Holiday meets with her father, who is the leader of the fairy kingdom called the River Master, she tells him that he needs to ask for her hand in marriage, or to ask the River Master if she can come with him. Now, Ben Holiday doesn't want to do this. As I said, he doesn't want to marry someone just because she says a distant prophecy said she had to. But this unfortunately comes back later, because Willow sneaks away from her camp, and although she rescues him, she basically tells him, because you didn't ask for me to come with you, I'm banished from my home because I had to leave without permission. And it just comes off it comes off so manipulative, like she's putting that on him. And I guess to an extent she may even believe that. It comes off like, I got banished from my only home because I love you so much, and now I have nowhere to go. So please love me back. And it's just, I guess to me it didn't feel like a genuine romance. It felt like these two were smushed together because that's what the prophecy and the author wanted to do. So, yeah, I guess I've said all I can about that. So the next part is the plot wraps up too fast and too neatly. So I'm going to acknowledge that this point may not be as big to others, or even the people who read it when it first came out, because I was aware there were sequels when I read this first book. So admittedly, when I read it, I was thinking, oh, okay, so this is going to be a series about him slowly building this kingdom back to its former glory. The challenge is, but even then, there's just still some there's clearly a fair amount of issues in this kingdom that you want to be able to solve all at once. Ben Holiday and his group goes around the kingdom trying to figure out what it's going to take to get all these former allies of the High King to swear their allegiance once more to him. See, they've lost faith because of a series of bad and inept kings due to the guy who sold the kingdom selling it only to people he knows are going to abandon it. It's a complicated plot, but it's not that interesting, I promise you. But anyway, so they've all lost faith. They don't even show up for his coronation. And so he goes around trying to figure out what it would take to get them all to re-swear their fealty. Now he has the human kingdoms, which are called Human Kingdoms of Rindwir. I think it's called Rindwir. The Human Kingdoms of Rindwir. The River Master, who leads a small fairy kingdom. You have the Trolls of Melakar, who are just admittedly kind of assholes from what I could tell. And I think it's even said in the novel that they were only kept in line because the trolls knew they couldn't defeat a combined force from the High King. But each of them give their own little conditions if they're gonna join. The Human Kingdoms want Ben Holiday they want him to slay and stop a dragon that is terrorizing their countryside. He was killing innocent people and slaughtering livestock. Or they want him to marry into one of their families to ensure that they'll have a claim to the throne later on in life. Now Ben doesn't want to marry, so obviously he's going to the dragon route. Then there's the Fairylands with the River Master. Now the River Master is a little more simple. He wants the Human Kingdoms to stop polluting the river and nature with a constant expansion without care. And unfortunately, though, that means Ben Holiday has to secure the fealty of the Human Kingdoms before he can get the fealty from the River Master. When they go to the Trolls don't even give him the time of day. They basically knock him out and they decide they're going to eat him later. And he's only saved because Willow banished us. On top of that, we also learn about something called the Paladin, which is something the High King has always... a basically powerful magical defender that the High King has always been able to summon to defend himself. The Paladin is so powerful it can basically kill a demon lord without breaking a sweat. But unfortunately, it also pulls its magic from the throne of Landover, which has been empty so long it's starting to lose all its magic. So the Paladin is only an empty suit of armor and a rusted sword, effectively. You also have a witch called Nightshade that's terrorizing the land. And you have a demon called the Iron Mark, which wants to duel and kill Ben Holiday so he can claim the throne of Landover for himself and subsume the lamb into his own dimension called Abaddon. So yeah, you have a fair amount of issues to deal with. This book is only 307 pages long, so you think, well, there's no way he's going to be able to do everything in this one book, right? He's got to slay a dragon, defeat a powerful witch, and kill a demon lord? I mean, that's the climax. Defeating one of those is the climax to a single book, let alone a full series. So you think, yeah, okay, so he's going to do one thing in this book, do another thing next book kind of thing, right? No. Unfortunately, he managed, in the last 30 pages, he effectively manages to wrap up every problem. Almost every problem. He banishes the witch Nightshade. He mentally dominates the dragon and also banishes him. Slays the Iron Mark after reawakening the Paladin and getting him his power back. And this earns him the fealty of the Human Kingdoms, which allows him to fulfill the River Master's deal. And he's also managed to secure the fealty of the Gahome Gnomes, something no other king has done before him. So the only thing left is the Trolls of Melakar. But it's really not a problem because we already learned from before that the Trolls of Melakar know when they're outmatched, and he has effectively just regained all the power to his kingdom. So there's nothing more to carry on, I guess. But you're wondering, okay, well, if he wraps up all of his stuff in this book, what could the other books possibly be about? Body swap episode, someone stole my identities pretending to be me. And the only people who recognize me are my enemies. A book I don't have, where it's the typical forced to work with the villains plotline. Then you have the I got locked out of the kingdom and the most incompetent character is the only one who can help me right now. Then you have my newly born daughter's been kidnapped and now I have to go fight to save her. Another book I don't have, which is my daughter's too rebellious. I tried to ground her so she ran away. And apparently there's a final untitled book which is coming out sometime in 2023, but it was supposed to come out in 2019 and was delayed, so that might not be set in stone. But honestly, I wouldn't hold my breath for anything interesting to happen in that book either. Like I said, I did try to read the second book, and I forgot I was even reading it after I set it down. So. So what's next, you ask? Well, Ben Holiday's identity doesn't mean anything to this book. One of the things that makes isekais interesting is the idea of taking someone from a different world and plopping them into a new one, where the rules are different and how they see the world is completely different from how everyone else sees the world. And that can create interesting scenarios. You have the animes have made an entire genre of it, obviously. That's why I'm calling it isekai. Even though I know that's specifically a Japanese genre, but it applies well enough here. Please don't comment. So what do I mean when I say that his identity doesn't mean much? Well, in reality, one of the bigger issues is that he doesn't seem to use anything he brought from the modern kingdom to help him. He doesn't use viewpoints that he earned in the modern world. He doesn't use his courtroom savvy to out-argue opponents, even in the political spectrum. He doesn't use technology from his world that no one in this world would have access to. Yeah, let's see the witch stop a gat. I'm gonna cut that. That was so fucking cringe. He doesn't even really use anything he learned to his world to the benefit for this one. He doesn't use a different viewpoint. He just, as far as Ben Holiday goes, he could have been a peasant from this world, and it would take very little rewriting to handle. Supposedly, Terry Brooks only made him a lawyer from our world because it would have been easier to describe it that way than trying to think of a way to naturally describe it from someone who's already in the world. And that's fine, but it's just, you gotta make him being from our world matter. It doesn't matter once he leaves our world. Ben Holiday, the lawyer, might as well just be Ben Holiday, the guy who just happens to exist after he gets to Landover. So, yeah, there's even times where he could... Like, okay, here's a good example. The Strobo, the dragon that's terrorizing the land, is believed to be mostly be attacking things and killing things because he's a dragon, and their natural instinct is to be evil. This is the thing. This is what people in Landover believe. However, when Ben Holiday finally meets Strabo, he finds out that not only is Strabo very intelligent, but can talk and has a genuine reason to dislike the people of Landover. You see, Strabo is the last of his kind. He's over a millennia old. The people of Landover have villainized dragons to the point where they would gather up and hunt any they met. And now Strabo is the last of his people, as far as he's aware. And it's just, he attacks them because he hates them so much for what they've done to his people. And this would have been a perfect opportunity for Ben Holiday to reason with Strabo, make a deal with him, promise him that so long as he serves the king of Landover, or even promise to try to help bring his race back to what it was, that he might be able to secure the help of the dragon, who he actually needs at this moment to get to Abaddon, where his friends have been taken. Again, it's a complicated, but really not in a way that is worth noting. But in the end, even this viewpoint that gets him, where Ben Holiday doesn't automatically believe in evil dragons, like all of Landover citizens do, means nothing. In the end, he just uses the mind control magic he used on the witch to take control of Strabo, force him to help him for what he needs, and then banishes Strabo. So, Ben Holiday being a lawyer from our world has no impact on the story. Beyond, that's how we got here. So in the end, you might think because my complaints outnumber and are much more in depth than my compliments of the book, I must hate it. Well, not really. No, it's most of the complaints made the book worse, yes, but not really in a way that dragged it down. In a way, the complaints I have kept it from rising above the planes of mediocrity. Sure, okay, so maybe the Willow one did drag it down a little, but the other complaints just effectively balanced out the compliments. So instead of rising or falling, it's just right here in the middle. There's really not much to talk about. Like, my complaints about Dorothy Must Die or Off-World, they were genuine complaints that I felt diminished my enjoyment of the story. They actively brought down the whole story with them. The Order of the Wicked being really stupid about their plan, and Off-World's protagonist omniscience when it came to the threats of the world. But it's not a bad book, it's just not good. It's about as average a book I've honestly ever read. In reality, like I said, the only complaint I really had that would have brought it down is Willow. And it's just, yeah. So in the end, I would probably give the book a simple 5 out of 10. It's not bad enough you'll get frustrated reading it, but it's not really worth the shelf space that it would take to store it when you have it. So, yeah. I am going to have to toss this book into Mount Doom. Sorry, Terry Brooks. How'd you guys like Mount Doom? I spent like a day. I spent a day working on it, but I'm proud of it. So, Mount Doom's here to stay. Or, you know, as you can see, Mount Doom. Anyways, maybe the sequels are better and they redeem the property, but like I said, I tried to read The Black Unicorn and it was just so unengaging that I forgot it existed. In fact, I'm trying to think on it, I can't remember exactly what I read. I think Willow has a dream about a black unicorn and they're evil, but she wants to set out to find it for some reason. And Ben Holiday has a dream about his old friend in the modern world in some type of major danger, so he goes to make sure he's alright. That's about all I can say. Like I said, I read about 60 pages into The Black Unicorn, and that's, since the book was only 307 pages long, it wasn't really redeeming. Oh wow, I think I used that for the original. Okay, whatever. So, hey guys, I figured I'd do this part of the video with my main overhead light on. As you can see, it lights up my room way better, as it was designed to. But it still kind of has quite a glare above me. Just let me know which you prefer at the moment, the previous setup or this one, and I'll try to do the rest of my videos in that style till I get a more adequate lighting situation. But that's not why you stuck around. What you stuck around for is figure out what I was doing next. But until then, this has been Afrodo Reviews. And remember, with every book is an adventure, and every adventure deserves to be had, even the bad ones.